on behalf of, where I, Dara Kalima, the community poet, chat with folks who speak on behalf of their respective communities. So today's guest is super dope, as you could even just tell by the shape of their hair. Like only people who have this amazing hair shape can actually, only dope people can do that. But that all said, I've known them for a while and they are so dynamic and they're just awesome. Like right before we started this, they did something. I was like, I just love you. That was like the only response I could have to them, because that's what they inspire. And by the time this conversation is over, if you did not know this person before, you're going to love them too. That's what I'm going to say. So that all said, hey, tell folks your name.
What's up, y'all? My name is Nora Oz. That's Oz like the wizard, but I'm magic.
I love it. So what are your pronouns, Nora?
She, her, hers.
Nice. And then what community? Oh, I forget. I jumped already. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about yourself, Nora.
I am from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Born and partially bred is what I say, because I moved around a lot. But my parents are from Brooklyn. All my family's in Brooklyn, so I rep that hard body. I have been writing since I was 13 years old, on and off. I am a published author, a podcaster, a speech language pathologist, fiance, an instructor. I've worked with you at Poetics U as a workshop facilitator, and purple is my favorite color. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Maybe that's why I'm wearing purple today.
Ew.
Maybe somehow I just knew that because I was doing this interview, I had to wear purple. I think there's something in there that was just like, Dara, you must wear purple today, because this is not what I wore today all day at work, but I just switched last minute. It was like, purple's the thing. It had to be for you. It was for you.
I was oozing all of my energy. My energy is always purple. Royalty in the house every day, all day.
I love it. I love it. So I unfortunately heard you say Brooklyn, because I'm from the Bronx, so I can't particularly co-sign that. But in addition to Brooklyn, you're also in Washington Heights. So what other communities do you represent?
Oh, I feel like there's so many. Well, I'm part of the D9. I'm a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. So that's definitely one of my communities. Brooklyn, all day, every day, stand up. Poets. I am a poet. I am now an author because I published a book of poets. So that's another community. I'm a podcaster. I am an aspiring blogger. I am the baby in my family. I have
babies. I'm a baby too. So team babies. Yes.
Team baby. I have one older sister. We're 8 years apart, which definitely made for an interesting experience growing up.
My brother's 8 years older than me, so I get it.
Yes. Oh man, see, it makes a difference, right? It's weird. It's weird sometimes. Like when I was 10, she was like a full 18, and that's when my sister joined the Air Force. So she was like gone for almost a year or something, and I just had the room to myself, so it felt like I was an only child, because after that she was gone and I was just like, whole room, just me.
I mean, people don't get it. And I have 2.5 siblings, or depending how you count people as whole people. I have 3 siblings, but I have a half brother who I only met. I haven't even still met him in person, but I became more acquainted with him as an adult. I've known about him since I was a teen, but I started interacting with him as an adult. And then I have my sister who was 10 years older than me. Both my half brother and my sister are 10 years older than me. Y'all can figure that one out. And then my brother who's 8 years older than me. So by the time both my brother and my sister were out of the house, I mean, you're still like a kid, and then they're all gone. And so then you're an only child, essentially. So you're both the baby and the only child.
It's a wild ride, man. I was like, it just, and I'm like, I have to say it definitely made me more selfish for sure, because one, I'm the baby, so I was already getting all the attention and all the love, and then like amidst my group of cousins, I was also like the good cousin, quote unquote. So like whenever shit popped off, they were like, "You see Nicole just sitting there so quietly? Why can't you all?" So I was just like, "I'm the shit." And then I'm by myself in the house. So it was a lot of things piled on top of each other. My sister hated me in high school, hated me. She was just like, "You're so fucking full of yourself. I can't talk to you." And I was like, that sounds like a personal problem.
Wow.
Not stand me. And I understand why. I was full force in high school. And then like I got to college and I kind of chilled out. And then I got sick. I have lupus. That's another community. I'm a part of the butterfly gang of lupus. And then I kind of like toned down, and she was like, "Thank God you're a person now." It reminds me of okay, have you ever watched Daria?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one of my faves. Okay, so there's an episode in Daria where she has to write an essay like of the life that would happen in the future, of how her family could be, and she writes a conversation of them just sitting at the table when they're older, and her younger sister Quinn,
Mm-hmm.
she's just like super hella spoiled and like the worst. And so they're having a conversation when they're older, and Quinn admits, she was just like, "I was terrible in high school. I don't know how y'all put up with me. I'm so happy that we're closer now." Rewatching that episode older, I realized, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm Quinn." And me and my sister deadass had this conversation. And
wow.
Now we're like super close. She's like my favorite travel buddy.
That's awesome. See, I don't think I was so I was more insecure. So I didn't necessarily like, I'm spoiled. Mm-hmm. I got my way a lot. And when I didn't get my way, my sister intervened so that I could get my way. But she's sort of like she was the power broker. She was making the deals on my behalf.
Look at that.
But I mean, my sister became a lawyer, so it made sense.
Wow. Why I was like, you had your own attorney.
I did. Like, she was, well, if you want this from mom, you're gonna have to give her that. Oh, okay, I'll do that thing. So get this. Like, she was brokering deals. She was brokering deals back then. But I think there was some other things going on in the house. So I wasn't necessarily a happy child. So therefore I wasn't taking it like, oh, I'm great, because there was so much wrong going on. So I was more insecure, but I definitely have been, probably am spoiled in some ways. Like I'm going to take that, like, I'm still spoiled. But like I'm still like really kind, giving, loving, and everything, and you know that. But I'm also like, oh, I don't have to do that. Okay,
that's fine.
Thank you.
Like, oh, you know that from me? Awesome.
Thank you. You know, I'm gonna own that. And it's nice being a baby. It's nice being a baby. And like, I had the same thing. My family, a lot of people always like, well, why can't you be like Dara? But it was like a lot of things that were informing me to be quiet and sit down and be proper and prim. But also because everyone was so much older than me, I also was like not included in stuff. So when my family was always surprised when they saw me in my natural element and I was actually engaging with people, because around the family, I just sit there and I'm quiet and I'm just minding my own business. And they were like, when I had my graduation party from high school, it was like graduation, happy birthday, bon voyage party. So we did it all in one shot.
Okay.
It was like one party, right? Like the next day I was off to college, and my family was like, "That's Dara?" Because I was with my friends. And so I'm sitting here like, hey, and I'm looking all cute. I had the short little skirt, I had the mini skirt on. And you know, I'm there, and I had the boyfriend there that nobody knew was my boyfriend. Yes. And so I'm flirting with everybody and I'm having a good old time. You know, I was on and popping. Mm-hmm. But like my family was like, who that? Because they ain't never seen me be talkative or that other version, because I'm always with the family.
Like, hi.
Like, I'm just real quiet and just unassuming, you wouldn't know. They had no idea. Because family, I'm the quiet one. I observe. I'm the baby. I know my place. Sit there, be quiet, listen, observe, and then giggle the heck out of it when I see what happened. Because I saw that. You think I didn't see that?
Mm-hmm.
I saw that.
Like,
so
sometimes I wish I was more that. I wish I was more the quiet, observant one. I have moments like that, but those moments happen when I'm like tired or I'm angry at something. And so I just like sit and I watch shit, and that's where I catch things. But I'm usually the loud one. I'm usually the one that like comes in and I'm like, yeah. I'm also always the late one to family functions, but I always come in fabulous and making an entrance. Everyone's all like, Nicole's here. And I'm like, yes, bitch. I know you were waiting for me.
I always come in and sit on the side.
Waiting for me. But like, they were not actually waiting for me, but they were just joyful that I was there. And I just reciprocated the joy. But
I love it. So we need the confident ones out there. You show us how to live. So when I grow up, even if I'm older, I still want to be like you one day. So there's that.
And I want to add a little you. I want to sit down and be like, I want to silently arrive, and people are just like, you're here, and I'm like, I've been here for an hour.
But that's what happens with me. People be like, does she even want to be here? Because people don't be remembering me. People don't notice me. I just be sitting there in the corner. I disappear, and then I appear, and then I sit back down and disappear again. People don't even. Like, what just happened? Yep, that's
how you learn shit. That's how you learn shit. That's how you're like, wait, really? That's what's happening here? That's crazy. I'm gonna sit back down.
It's a magic power. So you have your magic power. I have my magic power.
Yeah.
So we just did a whole thing on being a baby, but I don't think that's what we're talking about today. So that all said, we're here on behalf of podcast to talk about which specific community. Which one are you speaking about today, Nora?
I guess I want to talk about being like in the in-between. I call it the in-between generation. So I think we are categorized as millennials, but that's still question two, because I think it's also like Gen Z. It goes back and forth. But I was born in 1990. And so I grew up in this like space where it was like, I remember needing the Dewey Decimal System to look up books. But I also remember taking computer class and like playing Oregon Trail and taking typing classes. But then there's this other part where it's like, I watched Rocket Power, but I didn't watch Transformers. So that's like a weird thing. So it's like my fiance was born in 88. So he's like Transformers and Thundercats and yes. And then we just like had a conversation about this too. It was like that show about like sharks, street sharks. They were sharks that like swam in the streets. Like they were underwater, but they did it in the tar. Yeah.
I feel like I know which one this is, but I feel like I also am not sure. Like I'm okay. Continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it's like I vaguely remember Street Sharks, but I wasn't like hard body watching it. But I never watched Transformers, and I never watched any of those shows. But those were like shows that kind of like made him. So it's this weird space that we like hover in, where we were introduced to the technology in a format where we could grow with it, but we were still shackled by all the expectations of previous years and rules that weren't compatible with where we were going, but they were still taught to us. And I think it really affected the way that I like showed up in spaces, especially in terms of like school. It was like, you have to go to college, you have to graduate, you have to get a degree, no matter what. That is the only path. And now in a space like, it's legitimately the span of what, 7 years, 7, 8 years. And that whole mindset was different. So there's like my younger cousins who did go to college and do their things. But it's like one of my cousins went to college for art. And then another one of my cousins, she went to college to become like a marine biologist. And now she's working on TV sets and like jumping things. And now it's like expected for you to like jump jobs and do all these different career paths and have all these different skills. But that wasn't embedded, I feel like, in my generation as kids to do that. It was like, this is the one path. And I think it's like, fuck, sorry, can I curse on this?
You've done it already, so don't worry about
it. But I think it's just like disrupted our whole ability to have like a mental projection of where we can go. And we've had to like relearn, you know, while we were doing, which everyone has to do. It's like a whole process. We all have to learn while we're doing. But I feel like as like late 80s, early 90s kids, it's like a harder reboot. It's a harder relearn because there were so many years where we were just told like, this is what you should be doing. And then we had technology that wasn't thought of as an outlet of growth and potential and things of that nature, unless you were like a super nerd and you were computer programming. So it's like, if it was like computer programmer, or this is just for typing and you have to go to college. Versus now where it's like, you can make a career out of this just on your computer doing random shit. And it's so, I loved growing up at this time. I had many wonderful things. Spice Girls, Pretty Princess, okay? Disney classics, okay? Disney Channel movies, Xenon the sequel, okay? Xenon Girls 21st Century, our jams, okay? I saw Cinderella with Brandy and Whitney Houston when it premiered on television, okay? Recorded it on my VHS, still got that bad boy. Great times. But definitely think that it had a significant impact that left shackles that we then had to recognize and then break off. But that, I feel like it's with anyone. I feel like everyone goes through that, but I don't know.
I have a question because I've been like looking up as you're talking. I'm listening to you, but I've also been looking up your year of birth, where it lands in the millennials, and like what the millennial time period is, and it being Gen Y, because technically you're dead smack in the middle of millennials. So you're not on the cusp in that group. You're dead smack in the millennials. So then I wonder, is the question more so that this generation has had mixed messages?
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking about like my niece, my oldest niece is born at the end of this group. So she's my oldest niece is the end of the millennials. My other two nieces are Gen Zs.
I think it's a lot of mixed messaging because I feel like our generation is it seems larger than other generations. It's like they scooped up all the years that were after the 60s. They were just like, all of y'all millennials. And you're like, these are very different. These are very different categories. And they're like,
record,
one group.
I feel offended that you just said that statement, because you know what you just did when you said that statement, right? You erased X out of the conversation.
Oh, was that Gen X?
Yes. Gen X comes after the 60s.
Okay. So it was like, okay, fine. Baby boomers, Generation X. When does Generation X stop?
80.
Okay. So the millennials, as we are categorized, includes my sister, who's 8 years older than me. She was born in 82.
Mm-hmm.
My cousin, he was born in 88. My fiance was born in 88. My other older cousins, who are like now in their 40s. And then me, who I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then I'm like, and then where does it end?
It ends at 96.
96.
So these people are just in their late, getting to their late 20s.
Right. It's so, what I really think it is, and this is something that I think is of an effect across the board, is just that the way that we think about systems and the way that we communicate how to manage systems did not grow with the amount of technology and advancements that we had. So the millennial generation got a lot of mixed messaging because a lot of changes happened very quickly, unexpectedly, that people didn't know how to navigate. And so they were just like, try and true, do this. And it was a system that no longer worked. And no one realized that it no longer worked. And so now we're here like, this shit don't work.
You know, it's interesting though. I was watching something this week, and I'm going to get this wrong. I'm going to get this so wrong. But I was watching something this week, and they were talking about like the generations and the changes in times. And there's like, and we also did this at work. We were doing a DEI focused leadership development institute at my job. But the way that we approached it was via generations.
Ooh.
But there's something that happens almost every 20 years. There's a cycle that happens. And maybe it's not 20 years, but there's a cycle that happens that a time of trial tends to follow a time of innovation, which the time of innovation follows by a time of comfort. And that comfort, therefore, is followed by the fall of the comfort, which becomes the time of trial, which comes to innovation, which comes to comfort, and so this is like the cyclical thing that keeps happening.
Right.
And you can see it in our generations. You can see when that's happened in like between, even if you go back to, if not the boomers, baby boomers, if you go back to the silent generation, which would be their parents, right. You can see just between there until now that rotation happening probably twice.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting to think of. But they were also talking about how, so normally in that typical cycle, you have run into a child going, no, you don't know what you're talking about, to the adult. And then as they become a further adult going, oh, now I see what you're talking about. But because technology is moving faster than it has in the past, that same child who was saying, no, you don't know what you're talking about, to the adult is now, and saying, oh, no, you're right, is now also saying, oh, no, you're right, to the child. Because the child behind them, because things have shifted so much that the child was also right, because things are not what it used to be, even though we're like, we know how it's going to be, because there's always been this cycle, but the cycle's not cycling like it was anymore. And that is some video I just saw like this week about how that pattern, it may not be the same pattern, but that sort of pattern of like, we're used to going, oh no, I'm sorry, you're right, mom, when we become more mom age or whatever, that now we're saying, oh no, I'm sorry, you're right, child, because now we're seeing that it's not, that the child may be more in the know than we are, because the pattern didn't keep true now, because knowledge is changing so much.
Yes.
And so I think to all that to that end is sort of like what you're facing, what millennials ran into, because so I'm Gen X, but I'm the very end of Gen X. And so they started calling this one group Millennials, that fall in a hybrid right between Gen X and millennials. And it's about a 4-year window that covers both groups. And it really starts like 79 to like 82. So there's a very small window of people who remember rotary phones, who remember when we got touch tone. And if you had a rotary phone when touch tone became a thing, you had to dial 11 because when you had to do pound, because you didn't have a pound. So like, these are things that I remember growing up, was that we had to dial 11 when we had the rotary phone, because you had no number sign.
Right.
Which is pound, which is now hashtag, you know, like.
Yo, the way that, okay, I'm sorry, continue, because there's a lot of things like that I'm like, the one that hits me really hard is when someone did a video on, like, they were talking, like, they were like, wait, why does the save symbol look like this, like, square? And I was like, it's a floppy disk, girl.
Yes.
And I was like, she don't know what a floppy disk is.
Give me a few minutes, I could pull up one because I have some floating around this house.
We had a whole bunch floating around, and I remember using it in middle school to save my stuff. And I was like, where's my floppy disk?
Used it in college. So, and the worst thing is when that sucker got corrupted in the middle, because we didn't even have, we went from floppy disk to the bigger ones, the zip drive or whatever. Yeah. So it was the bigger drive that we had, and it held more. And now we have these little tiny things, you know, but like,
so, that easily gets lost. I miss my floppy disk a little bit because I stayed be losing that USB. I'm like,
you know, but like
it's at the bottom of my bag.
I mean, I remember when not even the hard floppy disk, the 3.4 one, but we had the bigger, the 4.5 one, the bigger one that we used to have that really was floppy. Like there's like, so I remember when computers started going home. And even though, you know, computers at home at first were more so people who worked in tech or were rich. So my uncle had a computer in his house long before we did. But when I was 9, that's when we got a computer. And we were like fortunate to have a computer back then because that was huge. But it was still working on DOS. Like, and most people were like, what's DOS? Like, they don't even understand what that is. You know, like, okay, yeah. So just think about those days when your computer's rebooting. All you see is the words on the screen and just the dot, like when it's just the words, like not an image, not a graphic image, but just the words. That's how a computer used to start for real. And that was DOS. And that's like,
that's when you had to type in and everything, like in the movie.
Yes, exactly.
Like
that was
my like 80s movies I watched, like those things.
Yes, that was my life. So we grew up, those of us who, especially who were millennials, we grew up with like this really old tech. Like I had a typewriter. I mean, typewriters are cool now, but that was my favorite toy as a kid because my grandmother gave me her old typewriter. So I had typewriters, and I had like her old typewriter that you could almost break a finger pressing into. And then I had the more modern typewriter. And then we had word processors. So when I got to college, I thought I was cool bringing a word processor. And I was like, I need to use a computer. This is word processing thing is garbage, you know? But like I got to college bringing my little word processor to my dorm. And that's how I did my first papers on a word processor, which was stupid. You know? I was so happy by sophomore year when I had a boyfriend who made me a computer. And that's how
I a computer?
Yes.
That's
and then
hell.
And then I learned how to make computers, and like
that is super cool.
So yeah, like but
great time.
But like these are all the like, but we came from this time where there was like this very low tech. Again, we were dialing 11 when you had to press pound because we didn't have that yet. We didn't have the touch tone phones. We still had the rotaries. We were still attached to the wall. We sat in the living room next to the wall because that's how far the cord went, you know. And so, but like by the time you were doing it, that was choice. When we were doing it, it weren't choice. You know, it was a choice, but when we were doing it, that was the only options back then. Right. And then it became choice.
It was only in my grandmother's house because she refused to get any other phone. She was like right here, and then she got an extended phone like cord, and that's when it started moving places. But most of the time, we were just like, "Hello."
Yes, exactly.
Right. But in my house, we had we could move it.
See, because then we also had cordless eventually. Like we were around for all those things that changed, and so that's why the millennial group is different because the X's were a little slower to change in technology because their old stuff was already the old stuff. Like I remember my black and white TV. There's a picture of me as a child going when we got our colored TV, you know. Like those things were big deals back then, you know. But like your group won't necessarily remember getting the new color TV, you know. The color TV was always there, or like my niece will not really remember, well, they will because we had it in our house, but like the bigger TV, they will remember flat screens, or
which is like the big TV with that big old back out that took up all that space, and you were like, this thing is gigantic. And it was huge. So my grandparents, and I remember that it was a big deal that they had gotten this TV, but it was the TV that came, like it was its own stand, and it was like, it was massive. I want to say that bad boy was like,
her arms are all spread out for those of you can't see it.
My arms are spread to the length, my wingspan. I am a tall person. I am 5'11", so 5'11" person's wingspan. And I don't even think that, I feel like it was still more. Like giant TV that was in the living room. It blocked all the windows, everything. I remember that was like a big thing, that the TV was there. But I was still very, very young when they got that TV, because they had a smaller one, but it still had its back out. So I remember giant TVs, and like, it's very funny when I go into antique shops or like thrift stores and those TVs are there, and I'm like,
I heard, did you hear, and I don't know, do you remember Tom's Diner, the song? La da dee, la dee da, la da dee.
Yeah, I love that song.
So they just remade that song. Of all the songs that I've never heard remade, I heard it remade last week when I was in physical therapy, and I was like, I have now heard everything. Like, this song was remade.
This of all songs, this is the one we went with.
It's like, she's begging for money. Okay, great.
Sure.
Wonderful. And so everything comes around and we end up looking older. But I think so, but again, so like, I know that they made this millennial group because there was a technology boom. Like we had nothing, then we had beepers, then we had cell phones, like, and it became flip phones. Like, we saw all of this in our time, like this, and it wasn't there before us. It moved with us. So as we got older, it showed up with us, and it just sort of grew with us. And I think that's why this millennial group became a thing, because we were in this weird place that as we were born, these things just sort of came in with us. It came of age with us. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why they started saying like there is this weird group that doesn't fit the X, or doesn't really fit millennials, because we fall in this weird place. But I do think, and I'm hearing you, because I've said a lot, but I hear you, that I think millennials as a general group has gotten a lot of mixed messages. And I think that's probably because some of your parents are probably like the end of boomers, or right, baby boomers. And then some of your parents are Gen X.
Right.
And so then that's also a mixed bag there, because you have this group who's like, we're not going to be like our parents who were boomers.
And wilding out. We're doing things different. And then they taught their kids to do things different, while I am the product of baby boomers at the end of the baby boomers, who are like, going to school, you want to get this good job, you want to make sure you have insurance, you want to have 401k, you want to learn how to type. And I'm over here like, I think I want to be an artist. No, you're gonna go to school, go get this degree. You want to have a job, you want to have a career. That was a big thing. That was the word always. They were like, you're not going to have a job, you're going to have a career.
And it's crazy, because do careers even, I feel like careers don't even exist anymore. Exactly. They're just really long jobs.
You just jump in jobs, and then people are like, I'm building a business from all of my acumen, from all of these jobs that I've picked up. So it's, yeah, that was the narrative, and it's what framed everything. And even like framed, because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I had to go to college. I wasn't even sure if I wanted to go to college. It was like, we're going to college because that's what we're supposed to do, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I was like, I think I want to write. I think I just want to be a writer. And my mom was like, no, that's not a job. And I think also because I didn't exhibit qualities for writing positions that were jobs. So like a journalist or a TV writer or things like that. That's not what I was doing. I was writing poetry and like stories sometimes, but not really. It was mainly poetry. And I wasn't living, sleeping, breathing, writing all the time. That just wasn't my flow. I was a very much like intuitive with the emotion kind of writer. And so from my mom's perspective, in wanting to make sure that I was stable and secure after her time of growing as the end of a baby boomer and watching those changes while she grew up, she was just like, no, you need a career, stability, and a 401k and matching. And she was like, no, go to school. So I went to school and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And my mom at the time had been looking into speech language pathology because she had thought about going into it. And she was all like, I think you would be great at this. And I said, okay. I like people who talk or whatever. So yeah, sure, let's do that. And that's how I got into this field. And I am appreciative of this field. It has taught me a lot. It has taught me a lot about the way people communicate, the way that we send messages, the way we receive them, and how that affects everything that we do. But if I had had a different leading narrative, I don't think I would be in this career. Mm. And that's something that kind of, after, like, not even at, like, when I was graduating college, I had a bit of like a small mental breakdown where I had a loss of identity. So I really just didn't know what I was doing. I had thought about changing my major to linguistics, which was like even worse. Like, it was like, we're going for speech pathology, which was like, oh, you can do a job here, but you still have to get a master's degree, to linguistics, where you're like, so you're just studying forever. You're just paying people money forever. Hopefully you learn a language and become an interpreter or become some kind of other language instructor, maybe. It was it's like an even larger question mark. And then I didn't, and I switched back to, I switched to linguistics, then I switched back to speech, stayed a classics major, and then I was graduating and I had no idea what I was doing. And I kind of fell apart. And I think that kind of comes about from this narrative that was embedded in my beginning narrative and how I defined myself, and then the space I was in and seeing where people were moving. And feeling like I was in the wrong place and not really actually knowing what my place was. And that's something that I'm still reflecting on and learning about and kind of working through now in my 30s. But it's just a clearer picture now because of the advancements in technology that is now like, I can YouTube that, I can Google that, I can reflect on that, I can read this book. There's so many books now that were never around before. And so there's the pleasure of that, but there is something about growing up in that later time of the millennials where that would have already been in place. And so you would have been starting from that space instead of me reflecting and going backwards to there to start again. But again, I guess like really thinking about it, everyone probably goes through this. It's part of everyone's growth. But
no, I think it is. I mean, everyone has this journey of who am I? Some people know early, but a lot of us are just like bumping through this world, and there is expectations put upon us. And you know, I do speak to my younger colleagues and advise them the same advice that my sister gave me. And I think there is like, so even back to that that DEI focused LDI at my job, you know, when we were talking about the different generations, it was also about what can you get from those different generations? Like, what can they offer? So the younger ones can give you new perspectives, new ideas. They can challenge you with new technologies and innovations and concepts. But the older ones can give you stability or the ability to say, like, we've tried that before, and let's not waste time on this nonsense because we've done that. You know, like, and some of it is absolutely like, you need the balance between the two, right? You need the new idea, but you also need to go like, oh, we tried that new idea. Let's not even spend time wasting time on that new idea. Let's go to a new idea.
Right.
You know,
let's build off of that new idea, but make it better, maybe.
Yeah, because
maybe we couldn't do, but maybe you can make it better idea.
Yeah, because we already done did parts of this, and we can tell you the parts that's gonna fail. But let's see the other parts.
Let's see the other part. You got additions. Awesome.
And so like there's a mix of it. And so I always tell my colleagues, like, I get the jumping, and I definitely think jumping has its benefits. And there's another video. There's the one guy, and I never know his name. I watch his videos, and it may not have been his videos. It wasn't his video, but I watched all these random like shorts on YouTube. And one of them was like, oh, I only make $27 an hour. And they were like, when I've been working here for XYZ years, and they're like, but you know, there's other people who have to make that. And one guy's like, you make $27 an hour. Because he's been there longer. He's like, I don't make that much. And they turn to the other guy, he goes like, oh, I make $28 an hour because he just joined. So now they gave him more because he was newer.
Right.
And so like sort of that whole like, when you're jumping into a new place, you can actually make more. So there is a benefit to job jumping, because the next place is going to give you more if they have it in their budget.
Right.
If you're going to the right place that is competitive, jumping is definitely going to give you a better raise than staying somewhere with their annual raises, for sure. But here's the other part. When you jump too quickly, you are leaving the 401k on the table. You are leaving that money that you didn't have to do anything. You're going to work. You're going to work for the next 20 years of your life, probably, for yourself, for someone else. Somehow you're going to be working, probably.
Mm-hmm.
If you worked at this place for 5 years, you may walk away from money that you didn't have to do anything else extra for. But show up.
And they were like, oh, she showed up. Or you just like, you shifted $20 into your 401k, and they're like, here's 20 extra dollars.
Exactly. So, I mean, because you're still going to work, but are you going to make money off of what they're going to give you for working there? Or are you going to keep jumping? And is the jumping going to always be better than the 401k or the 503b? I mean, whichever type of company you're in. And that's the question. Because if you jump every 5 years, you may still be jumping to a better income, but you also walked away with fully vested of whatever the other place gave you.
Right.
So there's that middle ground of that. Maybe you don't jump every 2 years, but you don't got to be there for 10 years.
Exactly. It's like, it's not a lifetime commitment anymore. It's not like, I've been working there for 30 years. No one said you have to do that. No one said that.
But you can stay long enough to carry some of their money with you, you know, because most places have a fully vested at 5 years. So you're working somewhere, you're going to be working for 5 years.
And then you call it and you're like, okay, great. That was great. Gonna go now.
Thank you for your money.
Thank you for your.
I'm going to roll that over to the next place too. Thanks. You know?
That was great.
I mean, seriously, the amount of money I walked away with from my first job, and it was all because my sister, who was truly a Gen X, was like fully vested. That's the one advice she gave me when I got my first real job. Invest in it, get fully vested. I didn't put enough in it, but when I walked away with money I didn't put in myself, I was like, oh,
okay,
thank you. And guess who's fully vested at their current job?
Bam. That's it.
And I was like, you can torture me for 5 years, and after them 5 years, the loyalty don't have to be there the same way. You know?
I was like, that was great.
But now I'm fully vested. So I'm going to take every dollar you done gave me. Please and thank you. Bye. You know? So like there's somewhere that like the different messages don't have to be or, but they can be an and.
Right.
I do think that your group probably has had a lot more mixed messages, in part because so much information has come. And and you guys, where we grew up in this change of information. So we sort of, Gen X's sort of know how to navigate all of it because we were the last latchkey kids for whatever that was. So we knew, like, just like when the pandemic happened, we had no problems being home alone because that's how the TV babysat us in our childhoods. Like we came home by ourselves and we knew how to take care of ourselves. We knew how to self-soothe. We were good. So
we were still, I had my key. I went home by myself.
But we weren't calling y'all latchkey kids. There's something cool about having the title latchkey kids.
I felt some type of way that we weren't called that. I was like, I have keys to my house. I go home by myself.
But you know, I mean, but still, like we still were like, we still got we navigate, like when the pandemic happened, the exes were like, we good. We've been doing this for a long time.
I was quite good. I was like, inside. I never have to go outside again. I took a lot of advantage of inside things. I was like, groceries delivered. Yes. Boxes of food that I don't have to think about. Yes. I was like, oh, and I have a fire escape. I'm going to sit here.
I sat on my terrace for the first time in years. I used to sit on my terrace all the time when I was a teen, and then I stopped, and then I was like, oh, this is nice and lovely. I'll sit right here again.
I miss this. This is beautiful.
It's great. It was great. I mean, that's what I plan on doing on the 4th of July.
And
grab a chair, sit on that terrace.
That's it. And Maisie's out here talking about we're taking the fireworks to a whole new level. I'm like, that means I'll be able to see them from my fire escape all the way in the night.
I won't be able to see that, but there's a lot of little things happening between Riverdale and like the botanical gardens or whatever happens over there. I can see all of the stuff around here. So I'm like, I will sit here and just do this. My neck will be on swivel.
Yeah.
But so we sort of already said it, like some of the things that frustrate the state of your community is just being sort of given these mixed messages. Is there anything else that you find that may be frustrating for your community?
I think also the labeling of millennials always frustrated me because it was a back and forth. It was like, oh, they're millennials. Oh, they're not millennials. Oh, they're like it was like, oh, you're Gen Y. Oh, but aren't you Gen X though? No, they're all millennials and then it's just Gen Z. And I was just like, how about we just say that this is a complex group of people and we've all just been living our lives trying to make it because we grew up with the rapid exponential growth of technology and it's fucked up all our brains. How about that?
It's definitely changed everything that we like, even the labeling. I think maybe, I mean, generally speaking, the generations are 15 years. Like that's the gap in each generation, but it may be too large of a gap now with the change of technology
that happened. Yeah. Because it's a very different experience of like my experience growing up, like being born in 1990 versus my cousin's experience being born, I think she's 95, is very different.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how different it is. And it's only 5 years. And it's like massive. And that means something. It's a different experience. It's like that part of like connecting with people. I feel like in older generations, it's like the connection goes across that whole span. But in ours, it's like there's a line where you're like, I don't know what y'all are talking about. And I'm like, good luck with that.
But I think it's also because there's so much out there now too, so that it's so easy to miss so much too. So like, even if it was like for us, like anyone X and earlier, pretty much, we didn't have that many things distracting us. You know, we played the board games at home. We did the things together. Like we did watch the TV, but it was like, we didn't have the thousands of channels.
Right.
We didn't have a channel, a TV station, a whole TV, a whole cable network
in our hand.
Like when I pulled out Pluto on my phone yesterday, I was like, wait, this isn't just one station. You don't need cable. When I sat here and when I really thought about it, like this station, this app, Pluto, I could turn it on. I could watch Family Ties. I could watch it, like they had a Black comedy channel. They had everything. They had everything. I mean, there's only one Black comedy channel. I'm just not going to acknowledge that. And it was like the Jeffersons. We was just like, but I'm gonna let it go. But it was still like, I still appreciated that there was one. But like also the channels that you would want to watch, like that really exist, you can find them there too. Like the basic cable channels are all on Pluto.
So what you're saying is that I need to just watch Pluto.
I mean, my thing is like, why do we have cable if I can pull up my phone and watch Pluto?
I question cable every day. Every day I question. I was like, why do we still have this? I've had this conversation with Rashad. I've been like, so can we get rid of this now? And he'd be like, oh, the sports. And I'm like,
I mean, I still watch cable and I watch a lot of old shows on cable because again, I think when the pandemic started, I wasn't doing this, but now at this point in this whole pandemic, I'm watching my old shows. I watched old stuff in the beginning of stuff, but the old stuff made me comfortable now. Huh?
What are the old shows?
So there's a channel called Rewind that plays all the 80s and 90s shows. So Different Strokes, the original Head of the Class, Designing Women, all of those shows that were from that time period. There's a show, there's a channel, Antenna TV, which is where Rewind sprouted out of. So Rewind is a new station, but Antenna TV was before that. So Antenna TV had some of those shows before, but Antenna TV will more likely, they may have your Sanford and Son. I'm not sure if they do anymore, but it'll have like the older shows. So you'll see Archie Bunker Place. You'll see those shows. But Family Ties, Who's the Boss is all on Rewind, but older is going to be on Antenna TV. So I watched both of those. And then like there's another channel, The Start, which is a women's empowerment channel, but it's still old shows. So you'll watch like Question Jordan and all the shows where like there's women leads who are like detectives and all that other stuff.
That's fun.
So you Medium, Ghost Whisperer, all those, even Touched by an Angel, those are all on that channel. You don't remember Touched by an Angel? Touched by an Angel had Della Reese. She was the main angel. And then some other people.
that one missed me. I didn't see that one.
Okay, so that's okay. But it was like there was angels who would come in and interact with regular people and help them get their life right. Because God wanted to talk to them. Sometimes Angel of Death was there to take them, but they were like, try to fix something before the Angel of Death took them, or whatever. But so it's like 2 to 3 angels trying to intervene in this moment.
Okay, that sounds like interesting.
I mean, it's basic. This is like an 90s show, but like it was still like enjoyable. Yeah. So and it was like first, like sometimes I'm really touched by it. I'm like, praise God. Like I had some real like yes.
I feel that. Yes.
I've had those moments. So like I've been self-soothing with a lot of old TV. So like not all of that is on Pluto yet that I've seen. But like also I don't understand why we have a whole cable on our phones now. Forget the additional apps. I didn't pay for Pluto. That's a free thing. I'm just like,
you probably have like, it's like a free subscription.
It probably is a free subscription that comes with Verizon or whatever, but like it is 1,000 channels.
That's dope.
I was like, what is this thing? I mean, I just discovered it yesterday. But that all said, my group just, because all this came with us, we sort of just rock with whatever comes. Like everything that comes, it's just like, yep. I mean, the first thing I remember is Challenger blowing up. So every other tragedy that happens along the way, just like another one.
That's a wild, yeah. You're like, that was, yes, it was heartbreaking.
Exactly. I mean, there's literally, I wrote about Challenger, like the Challenger happened when I was like in first grade. I have an assignment when I was like, we were writing, we saw the shuttle go up into the sky. And I look at that assignment and I'm like, I wonder how they hit the fact that it blew up on us.
They were not ready. They were like, so you guys are gonna write about how that experience was, what you saw, how you feel. And then it was like, oh shit.
But none of us, like, at least none of my assignment wrote about the bad part. So I was like, did they just like change the channel real quick? Did they like, what, like, was it on a delay and it got in the way? Like, I don't know why we didn't talk about it and why it's not in my writing, but I knew that assignment was absolutely the challenger when it went up. I'm just like,
we didn't talk about it. Teachers came the next day and they were like, we're not doing it. We're not addressing this.
And I mean, I had a hat for challenger and I like, it was a crazy thing, but like, so we just knew to move with it. But I think your group, like, just never had, it was, you guys came into like an earthquake.
Yeah. It was like, they blasted it. They were like, okay, here is how you do math without a calculator. Here is the Dewey Decimal System. Here is like, ooh, a computer. And then it was like, technology only, typing always. Look, Google this. No encyclopedias. Google it. Do this, do that. Oh, but you still
Wiki is God, even if it's a bad source. Use Wiki everywhere.
Right. You're like, wait, what? And it was like, ask Jeeves. Don't ask Jeeves.
I don't even remember Ask Jeeves.
Like,
ask you about that.
Right. That was it. Ask Jeeves was everything. And then you were like, don't use that. Then it was, oh my gosh. What was that? What was the site that you used to get directions?
MapQuest.
MapQuest. MapQuest. No MapQuest. They're terrible directions. Print out your directions. You don't need them anymore. Don't print out anything. It was a fucking madhouse of changes. And they were like, forget everything we've ever told you. Do this instead.
Yeah.
And yes. It was just, you're just sitting there and you're like, okay. And they talk about how we're like null to violence, but I feel like we had to become like numb to everything because changes happen so fast that you were just like, okay, cool, yeah, okay. And it was like, oh, this is happening. This is happening. We were gonna do this now. And you're like, yeah. Okay. And here we are.
So something beautiful about your group.
I think that all of that also made us very adaptable. That even though we have these setbacks and we are very confused and we don't know what we're doing, we also have found ways to make it our own, to make it ours. And I think the other thing that I love is we also grew up in a time that was very heavy and proactive in diversity and setting that tone, which has influenced so many creators and writers that are now trying to push that forward again. Because I remember the shift that happened where it was so many of these Black and brown faces on television, and how that really like overnight was like, we're not doing that anymore. And the effect that had on us, and being like, wait, what happened to my show? What happened to Taina? What happened to Vessel Raven?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? And then we were like, oh, forget this. We can do this. We can make our stories. We can work it out. And how that has led to where we are now, where there's all of these creatives and all of these voices telling the stories of marginalized communities being pushed forward, and as because we broke through that door to make it happen. And I do appreciate that. We also had great music. So much good music. Love it. Sean Paul. Sierra. Tweet. I saw all of their come-ups. I was there when those tracks first hit. Great times.
I have to say, as you say this, you're describing this, I was like, wait, you're talking about like Issa Rae and just her creating like Awkward Black Girl, and Issa Rae is a millennial.
She's a millennial.
And I mean, you weren't speaking to her specifically, but like you're the plight you were talking about was like essentially like a lot of things that came up out of YouTube, and a bunch of people who were just like, yeah, we're going to create what we're not seeing.
Right.
And
and it's a beautiful thing. It's like a wonderful thing. And it was because we got kind of thrown into it. It was because it was like, we're writing all our notes. We're typing all our notes. You have a binder of giganticness. You don't need paper. You don't need paper anymore. Like, and being kind of thrown into it, and then trying to find these spaces to just express yourself, and having like the AOL chat, and finding chat rooms to talk to people, and navigating Messenger, and then navigating MySpace, and deciding that you're gonna like record yourself doing something stupid, and then all those terrible shows, which were still important in order to open up people to do stupid things on a camera, like Jackass. I hated that show so much, so freaking stupid, but it was important because it gave us leeway and space to do crazy, ridiculous things and be like, it's okay. And just kind of put yourself out there and kind of throw yourself with it and roll with it. And I think that is a beautiful thing that was taught to us. I can't even express how many jobs I get from the simple fact that I'm so adaptable. That's like a big thing when they say to me, they're like, oh, you just like roll with all of the punches. And I think coming up in that space, that in between space where we kind of got thrown into it, really helps with that a lot.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I have nothing else to even say after that. I think I don't think I've ever really gotten caught up in the different generational stuff. Mm-hmm. I've been very focused on my generation, and maybe because I'm the baby, and I just get like, oh, but I'm the baby, gotta love me, you know.
Gotta love what's happening here.
So I don't really think I pay attention to like all the different groups or the things that signify the different groups. I do see some differences in the different groups, and I do think there are some. I think in some ways, some of the groups do live up to their things too. Like I think Gen X, I'm like, now I got to think about like, what is the Gen X known for? I think, I mean, now we're just a forgotten group, and we are. Everyone, like, we're called the lost generation because everyone legitly jumped from boomers to millennials, and we're like, hey. We just never had. Okay, thanks. I do think we're cynical. I think we are a little bit more rebellious. I that's all very much part of. I think we're a sarcastic group as a trend. I think that is true of Gen X. I think there is a little bit of, and I think this goes to that chart that we were talking about before about the shifting. Mm-hmm. I think in some ways millennials, having had it to a degree a little bit easier, has been a little bit less inclined to work as hard as some of the predecessors, and in the ways that we see work. So I'm not going to take away from what millennials are doing, but I'm going to say that how earlier generations may have defined work, millennials are not about that. And so it's very frustrating to some of us. And I do think, like, I'm not going to say things, but I've seen some cutting corners that I'm just like.
But again, that kind of just reflects how much change happened, because it's like the way they describe millennials, and they're just like, you're lazy and you don't want to do this work and da-da-da. And I'm like, I feel like you're talking about that end bit, because us over here fucking burning our asses off. Yeah. But there is a level of comfort that we were birthed into and grew in, that definitely influence how we describe hard work, for sure. Yeah. Because there is, like, I had a conversation with my mom the other day, because I've been like, I have to do this paperwork with my job and it's so hard, and the trauma that happened before, and she's just like, just do it. I don't understand why you can't just do it. And so there's that. There is an aspect that we were bred in a space of comfort and luxury and getting things quickly and getting everything that we asked for, because there's also that kind of like aspect of economics at that time where it was like credit cards and money was flowing because we didn't realize how much money we shouldn't have been flowing. And all of that kind of gave this cushion that taught us that, oh, there is abundance and I can abundantly ask for anything I want and get it with not like barely lifting a finger, and then having to get hit really hard because we left that space of comfort into a space of like turmoil, being like, what do you mean I can't just do this? What do you mean I have to work that hard? That's ridiculous. I've never had to do that before. Why should I start now? There is a privilege there that I definitely think influences, but I feel like the hammer comes down really hard on millennials in terms of that perspective, which again stems from the fact that we are seeing what could be in terms of the way we do things. And the world is telling us that we shouldn't do it that way. And there's a disconnect that's super fucking frustrating.
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting because, you know, I have a lot of respect for Gen Z, and it's not the respect I have for Gen Z is somehow, and it may be again who their parents are, because their parents are Gen X, if you really think about it, right? Yeah. So they're Gen X parents. So Gen X, my mom and I have these discussions all the time. I was about to say arguments. I'm going to say discussions. We have these discussions all the time because my mom's a baby boomer, about student loan debt and debt, period. And yes, my mom has debt and I have debt, but our debt is different. And my group, it may be the beginning of your group, but I think it may have just ended with my group. It could be the beginning of your group. We were preyed upon. And when I say that, you know, it was something after me. So it could maybe hold your group at the very early group.
It definitely, yeah. I went from 90 to 92.
Yeah, where they finally changed the laws that credit cards couldn't go to colleges to try to solicit that. Where's all of my debt? Well, now that my student loan got forgiven, but where's all of my debt? All my debt, most, like 90% of my debt is my credit cards. Well, when did I get my credit cards? I was helping my friend who had a job to get people to join and get credit cards. So she never got the credit card, but I was like, oh, this is your job? Sure, I'll help you out. Mm-hmm. And it was a peer-to-peer sell of a credit card. And I've had these credit cards since college. And that's how they got me. And that's how they've had me this entire time. I paid rent and credit card debt because we were just too stupid to know. And even though I was told not to, and I thought I was smart enough not to, life happens and you need those few extra dollars and it's over there and you keep doing it. But Gen Z has learned, because I think of Gen X group, like I've had mentees who were in the Gen Z group and they were like, oh no, I'm not doing student loans for college. I'm not doing this I'm not getting a credit card, or I'm not doing it that way. And they're a lot more aware. And I think even millennials, even the latter group has gotten into, they may have said, I'm not going to get into that debt that way, but they haven't had the financial planning the same way either. Yeah. But I think Gen Z is like, nah, we going to be smart about this money business. I think millennials are definitely innovative and have come up with some great ideas and changed the game in a lot of ways. Yeah. And we got to give y'all props for that. But I think but it's interesting to see those things that are happening with each group, and those things is partially who your parents are. Because if you see your parents struggling because they got credit card debt, you're gonna be like, I'm not doing that same thing that they did.
That life. You're like, and also the amount of expression that occurred from parents. So like my parents didn't show that they had struggles financially, so I didn't know what financial struggle was, or if there was a struggle financially, it didn't happen until like I was older. And at that time, it was kind of just like, oh, we're just not gonna have cable this week. It wasn't like I didn't pay the bill, so thus we don't have cable. It was just like the cable's out, and I was like, okay, bet I'm gonna just watch DVDs, or like I'm gonna just watch my VHS tapes. So it didn't really hit the same way. The messaging didn't hit the same way. So, and when I went to college, they were still there. They had a whole fair on the quad for credit cards. Mm-hmm. And opening up bank accounts and doing this and that. So they, like, one of my roommates in college had like ridiculous credit card debt because they came even early. They came to the seniors at their high school. Yeah. And that whole revamp that they did with FAFSA to like teach you about debt and that crap didn't hit. I was already, technically, I should have been graduated, but I had that year that I had to take off because I got sick. So it came through in like my senior year. They were like, before you fill out your FAFSA, you have to go take this course. And then they sat you down at the computer and you had to go through this whole thing. And I was like, too little, too late.
And besides that, if I'm gonna go to school, I'm still gonna have to fill this out, so it don't make a difference.
I was like,
so now I'm informed that I'm about to go in debt, but it's not gonna make a difference. Thank you.
Because I'm already in debt and I have to finish school. It was like, I remember that so much because for the bursar office is trash. They never do it. Like it's always it's always like a trial. It's like Hercules Gauntlet going to the freaking bursar office. So I'm already annoyed. I have my papers, blah, 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 trying to figure this out. I filled them out finally. I'm like, okay, great. Rolled up in there and they were like, you have to go fill out that. I don't even think this was undergrad. I think this was graduate school that they made me do this. So graduate school. And they were like, there's a line because everyone's going on the computers. You have to take the course and then we'll fill out the form and then we'll sign it. And I was like, what?
I remember the course. Remember, I have master's degrees. I know what you're about.
So yeah, I was like, you're late. And the rollout was like, we're gonna help college students, And I was like, you're late.
You're not really helping anyone. You're just telling us how we're gonna get into debt. Like you're not. If we're gonna go to school, we're still gonna have to fill you out. We're still gonna have to do the loan. You're just telling us you're just making it clear the ways in which we will be in debt when we weren't clear about it before.
Right. So that we can't sue you.
Exactly. Exactly. But so we've talked a lot about your generation. We've talked a lot about a lot of things. I don't want to make this conversation come towards a close, but it is, and we don't need to break the record on how long this conversation goes. Before we get to the last question or so, or as we get to the last question or so, is there any fun facts about your community you think we should know?
Fun facts about my community. I don't know.
Okay. Well, we'll just say that you guys have birthed great people in technology like Issa Rae, because you already started saying that. We've touched on that, but yeah.
There were many #1 hits during our time, I feel like. The rise of Mariah Carey, the comeback of Whitney Houston.
I mean, it was during your time, but they were not from your time.
And that's what I said, during the time.
Got out there.
I said wasn't our time like a big time for like girl and boy groups?
Yeah.
The rise of that.
Yes. I'll give
there
you that.
Go. Spice Girls.
Stop right there. Thank you very much. I need somebody with a human touch.
Great time. Spice World. Excellent film. Love it.
I will never co-sign that, but okay.
Love it.
I'm a little. Let's put it like this. I was working in the music store at that point in time because I was in college, and I was just like, yes, no. I just watched itself, but I just.
Yeah, so. you had to have a love for the Spice Girls to allow that to love your heart, because it is a ridiculous film of ridiculousness. It doesn't make any sense. The plot line, all over the place.
As long as you understood. That's what I want to make sure.
I do. It's a ridiculous film, but has my heart forever and ever. So yeah, there it is. Oh, also the time of like, I think it was like, I feel like it was the end of arcades as they were before. Like, because I remember the giant arcade that was on 42nd Street with like the huge screen and and the end of that era.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
It's not like when you just like went in there and you're just
was it Barcode? Was that what it was called?
Yes, Barcode. Oh, great time.
Yeah.
Yep. And the end of like the time of record stores, the way that we knew them.
So you want to know random funny fact? My first job was at a place called Record Town, and they still exist, but the Record Town is FYE now. But what's hilarious is now they sell random tchotchkes when records and vinyl is back to being popular. So had they kept their original name, they could actually still be selling records, right?
They would have been the hit of the town.
Seriously?
People would be like, Record Town still here. It would have been a whole story like the last Blockbuster.
Exactly. But like, you know, instead they sell like now they're more like a what's that place? The place that sells random stuff that I can't even think of it, that I won't even describe it because of how I would describe it would be terrible. But the place, because they sell makeup and they sell mature stuff, and you know the place that it's the store that's all over like the place, the store, but I'm not going to say anymore because I'm just going to describe it badly. It's going to get worse. So it's just one of those stores that randomly sells a whole bunch of stuff that you go and get your random stuff in. So that's like that store now. They don't sell the mature stuff that I know of, but it still exists. And we're just like, every time we see one of us spot it, we're like, there's an FYE. I remember when. So is there a fun fact about yourself you want to share, madam? I was going to say butterfly, but that doesn't seem right, but it is right, but it's not right because there's actually a play.
Yeah. Let's not go.
So that's not what I'm trying to say, but know where I was trying to hit
that. Because my book is called Butterfly Speaks. So you were like, better be just Lady Butterfly. We can do that. There you go. Because that's a whole nother.
Yes.
It's a great play. Fun fact about me. I permed my hair my sophomore year of high school. Everyone knows me as having natural hair, braids or anything, but I did perm it sophomore year. I hated it so much. My hair looked wispy as hell. I was like, what is this? And it like laid on my face. And then I had to do so much work to get it to do. You know what I had to do for this? Nothing. I picked my braids out. Done. That bad boy, I had to put in rollers and sleep on them. Hated it. Props to anyone who does perm their hair and love it. Happy for you. Live your truth. Not for me. And even more so, I did it because everyone kept telling me that I needed to perm my hair. So I was like, what is the big deal? So I went, my curiosity got the best of me and I was like, I'm gonna do it. Hated it. And then all my hair broke off and I wore these very adorable twists for my junior year that made me look very adult. It was a wild ride. I grew up like 5 years. I was 16 years old. I looked like I was a nice 20. Like when I look back at those pictures, I'm like, high school, wild. That's a mature chick right there.
See, millennials went through a whole bunch of changes. That's how they rolled with everything. They rolled. And see, and here is the thing. This story is actually so perfect for like summing up a millennial, right? You get old school teaching about what your hair should look like.
Yep.
And then you like, I'll do it because I guess my ancestors are saying, or my elders are saying, I got to do this thing. So I do the thing. because popular opinion says this, and you do the thing, and then you go like, nah, that's not for me. Let me go live my own life in truth and do it my way, and that's how I'm gonna roll. And I think that sums up the whole experience of millennials per this conversation.
With that short period of recovery, you like, I did that. That was wild. That was trash. Got to recover. Do my own thing.
There you go.
And like this, and it's like mini cycles of that over and over and over again.
I love it. I love it. I love it. So do you have a poem, because you are a poet, that you would like to share with us?
I do. And I tried to find one that kind of related to this topic of kind of like change and expectations a little bit. So this poem is called "On Waiting for a Landlord's Signature So I Can Move Out." Butterflies are living in my stomach this weekend. They're fluttering and settling and crawling and fluttering again because I don't know what I'm doing. My mother has no blueprint for this new age selling of reconstructed American dreams that fits into a 300 square foot apartment. I gave a man all my money. 23 contact hours with students who couldn't speak, loan hundreds from a doting father whose only financial plan is don't spend money. $250 from my mother who got her check that day, heaven sent. $200 from my sister who has only 4 to her name and is currently breaking up with her boyfriend and needs a new place to stay. $300 from the unexpected love of my life who reassured me everything will be all right by squeezing my hand I gave to a man in a teal polo shirt that stretched across his arm, muscles below a well-established beard that has that soft point where he could look like a Russian dictator, but he's too black for that. So he just looks stylish and strong and trustworthy. And a simple cap on top makes him also down to earth. So you'll have no worries. And his name is so similar to my boyfriend's that I believe the universe sent him to be our champion. So I gave this man all my money. I have 90 cents left in my bank account and a verbal guarantee that I have an apartment. So butterflies are living in my stomach this weekend because all I have in my hands are solid hopes and dreams, first molded out of clay, malleable and changeable until laid out in the sun of my efforts, hours of studying to get a piece of paper that equated to I was enough to get certified to actually be enough for my career. 6 months of waiting and 4 interviews of impressing with hair slicked down so as not to scare employers away with my apparent ethnicity, and the same white ruffled shirt to prove I'm classy. Until finally, confirmation from my first day of work where I served a true MTA commuter sentence of 9 months of 2-hour commutes to do something that brought both joy and intense anxiety. As I learned, I'm not actually ready to solve the communication issues of the children of overworked, internet savvy New York parents. They ask questions I don't have answers to, while drowning in paperwork that delayed checks, but keeping in mind always the molded dreams of being a professional career woman, debt-free, with 1 Burberry coat, and most important, an apartment with at least 2 closets and a washer dryer in the building. All this molded in my hands, carved with bloodstained tools from my parents' sacrifice, uneaten meals, the proving I'm more than my black skin battles that lasted years, internal fights resulting in tears, broken marriage, but established parent partners after 13 years, 8 moves and 10 years of my childhood searching for better as they fought the good fight, as any tail end baby boomer who survived the crack epidemic could. They fought for me and my sister, but especially me, looped in my sister to protect the baby from the sinister world that was waiting to deny me. They put all their learned lessons, memories of mistakes, and unlimited faith in me, which I molded into these hopes and dreams. resting on the sandy foundation of the verbal promise of the stylish man in the teal polo shirt, who I gave all my money. So I can't answer any questions about going out for drinks, or in reference to the economy, what do I think, or directions to Times Square, or could I spare $1 here and then there, or who's bringing food to the party next week, or what's going on with my job in 3 weeks, or will I be attending an open mic, or what I'll be wearing to a friend's wedding tonight. I can't speak on these things because one of the butterflies might peek out and all my fears will flow out, and I'm trying to feed positive energy to my aura because all of this is going to work out because my hopes and dreams are solid. And my will can shuck sand into sturdy ass glass, but in the meantime, me and my atrium of butterflies are gonna be sitting here real quiet.
Wow, that was amazing. And I do feel like I have heard this poem before. You asked me had I heard it, and I was like, I'm not sure, but I have. But just sitting there listening to it in the context of this whole conversation, it lands differently because the struggle of your parents and all of that landing there, and then you finding yourself, and then like hearing the friends and what they want from you or they're asking of you. Like, so hearing the two different types of generations in conversation in that poem really land so much differently, listening this time, having had this conversation with you. So that was so amazing. If you could give one piece of advice to those of us who are not from the millennial generation as to how we should engage or listen to or consider the plights of your group, what would you tell us? Or what would you have us know? Or what would you want us to do?
I think the big thing is to listen. That sometimes when we're saying things, it's not that we need you to solve the problem. We just need you to listen. Because a lot of the times we can kind of solve it on our own. At least that's how I find for myself, is that I don't need you to come save me. I need you to just listen and hear me. And then I'll work it out myself. I also want everyone to stop saying that we're lazy.
That you're what?
That we're lazy.
Well, I know you personally. I know for a fact that you are not lazy.
Hate it.
I think some folks may have earned that title, but I will say that no one is actually lazy. Someone said this a long time ago. No one's lazy. Everyone's doing something for what they think is a good. So even if we don't understand how they're moving, how a group is moving, they're moving for what they believe to be a good, even if it's just looking like not doing it how we would say they should do it. So to that end, I co-sign you and I agree with you. So how do we get to support and follow you, Nora?
You can follow me on Instagram at NoraOz_Queen. That's Oz like the wizard, but I'm magic. I am also on Facebook, but I don't do things on Facebook. But I have a page on there that's Nora Oz as well. I'm gonna do something with that. But mainly follow me on Instagram. That's where I post all the things. That's where I be at. And awesome. Purchase my book, which is linked in the bio on my Instagram, Nora Oz, OZ_Queen. And awesome. Nora is spelled Nora. No H, please. Don't do that.
No H. No H. No
silent H. There's no
silent H. We understand.
No offense to the Noras who have a silent H. Live your life. I just don't like it when people just assume there's an H in there.
So you're nicer than me, because for the people who say Dara, they saying it wrong. And so they can be as offended as they want to because they're saying their name wrong. It's Dara. It's not my fault y'all say your name wrong, but
I'm just letting you know.
It's Dara. That other thing? Some people say it right, some people say it wrong. You choose it the wrong way. That's good on you. Feel how you want to feel about that information. So Nora, it has been such an amazing treat to talk to you, to have you on this podcast, to speak with you on behalf of the Millennial group, who I think that's where we landed, that we understand, but we understand that it's just a group that has just been totally misrepresented. And I think you have done an amazing job of helping us understand your group more. I immediately acknowledge that I probably have not done enough to learn the perspectives or experiences of the millennial generation. I just know it's the group behind me. But I didn't even know when the millennials ended and when Z begins. Like, I just have had no concept of which one's which and when whatever. So it has made me today figure out which is which and when things happen.
I am happy that you looked it up, because I have looked it up multiple times, and on 3 different websites, they had 3 different dates. So I just was like, whatever.
Well, when you were born, it's dead smack in the middle of the millennials. So that's at least one thing. Like, you're in the middle of it. So right. that we know. But that explains why you may feel the split between the 2 groups, because you're in the middle of the group, and the group is just, I mean, it happens. I'm sure it happens in X too, but because I'm in between X and millennials, I appreciate some things from the millennial group, but because my siblings were so, even though older and gone, by the time I was really forming, but those early memories, I was like, I'm X with you guys. I'm in the same group as you. They're like, no, you're not. I was like, I am an X too. We're in the same group. Like, I was defending tooth and nail that I was X. Like, there was no way you were ever going to tell me I was not X. And so I was always proud to be X, and I am still proud to be X. But it was so much of their stuff came into my world. But I also acknowledge that, again, like, we didn't have the other things to distract us. So when they were watching Video Music Box, and that was the only channel and the only TV in the house, or the only TV that we were watching, I was watching Video Music Box. Or when we were watching Kung Fu after the cartoons, I got tortured with Kung Fu because, that's what my brother wanted to watch. That's what I got stuck watching, So, like, there's all those things that I couldn't escape, where in your group, because there's so much more technology and so many options and so many more screens, you could escape a lot quicker than I could. So there's becomes that easier divide between the different age groups as well. So, I mean, different times of when you're born within that group. So it's been interesting learning about your group. And so I thank you for this conversation.
And having me. Thank you for receiving the conversation and letting it flow, and where you helped take it. It was great.
Yay. Yeah. So this is another episode of On Behalf Podcast, and join us next time. Bye, everyone.